All right, let's talk about what might just be the most consequential startup of the 20th century. This one didn't build an app, and it definitely wasn't a social network. No, this was a top-secret venture with a single, absolutely terrifying goal: to hack the source code of reality itself. And believe me, its launch day changed our world forever.
So this whole story really kicks off back in 1905. A guy you might have heard of, Albert Einstein, discovers what is basically a cheat code buried deep inside the universe's physics engine. The equation is E equals mc squared. And it doesn't just look elegant, you know? It's telling us something profound, that mass isn't the solid, permanent thing. It's actually just a ridiculously condensed form of energy.
And here's why this is what we call a system-level exploit. That c in the equation, that's the speed of light, which is already an astronomically huge number, but then you square it. The multiplier becomes almost, well, incomprehensible. It means that the atoms in something as small as a single grain of sand contain a truly apocalyptic amount of energy, just sitting there, waiting to be unlocked.
For decades, this whole idea was purely theoretical. It was chalk on a blackboard, right? But then, in a lab over in Berlin, a team of scientists just completely stumbles upon the proof of concept. They accidentally proved that this cosmic exploit was very, very real.
The first result they got was just total confusion. These two scientists, Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann, were firing neutrons at uranium, and they expected to create a slightly heavier element. That's what should have happened. But instead, they found barium, which is about half the weight. It made 0 sense. It was like hitting a brick with a pebble and getting 2 marbles back.
So the guy who actually did the chemistry, Otto Hahn, he was just stumped. He had no idea what happened. The explanation came from his longtime collaborator, a brilliant physicist named Lise Meitner, who had just recently been forced to flee Nazi Germany. From exile, she and her nephew figured it out. Hahn hadn't just chipped the atom, he'd split it clean in 2. She's the one who gave it the name, fission. And in what is just a classic case of corporate erasure, Hahn gets the Nobel Prize, while Meitner's crucial, world-changing insight gets completely overlooked.
Okay, so here is the crucial piece of the puzzle. Fission didn't just release a ton of energy. Critically, it also released more neutrons. This is what created the potential for an infinite loop exploit. One split triggers 2, those 2 trigger 4, and on it goes exponentially. If you control it, you've got a nuclear reactor. If you don't, you've got a bomb.
An impossible startup like this needs a truly impossible founder. And that's where J. Robert Oppenheimer comes in. The man was a brilliant theoretical physicist. I mean, he could grasp the deepest concepts of the universe. But, and this is famous, he was a complete and total hazard in an actual real-world lab.
This quote, man, it just says it all, doesn't it? Oppenheimer's entire being was just consumed by this one singular obsessive focus. He was driven by a need to solve the puzzle, a drive that would make him the absolute perfect and maybe the most dangerous leader for a project like this.
And we're not just talking about academic focus here. This was true, unhinged main character energy. As a young man, he allegedly left a poisoned apple for a tutor who frustrated him. He was so deep into quantum mechanics that he completely missed the start of the Great Depression, didn't even hear about the stock market crash for months. He chain-smoked, he barely ate, he was brilliant, arrogant, and profoundly unstable. The exact visionary you'd want to build a doomsday device.
But you know, even a founder with that kind of intense drive needs a catalyst, a market opportunity. And in the late 1930s, the world's provided the most terrifying one imaginable. The seed funding for this whole venture came from a now famous letter written by physicists Leo Szilard and Albert Einstein to President Roosevelt. And the warning was simple: the Nazis might get this weapon first.
And just like that, the race was on. The Manhattan Project officially kicks off. It's this massive, sprawling enterprise run by 2 key players. You had General Leslie Groves, the logistics genius who could literally build secret cities overnight, and then you had J. Robert Oppenheimer, the scientific director whose job it was to turn all that physics theory into an actual weapon system.
I mean, the scale of this thing was just staggering. Over 130,000 people were employed across secret sites like Los Alamos, Oak Ridge, and Hanford. And the wildest part? The vast majority of them had absolutely no clue what they were actually building. They were just told their work was vital to winning the war, and that was it.
Now let's talk about the burn rate for this startup. The project's cost, when you adjust for today's money, was around $30 billion. Think about that. All of that capital, all of that human brain power poured into developing a single, terrible product.
The urgency was so unbelievably intense that they didn't just bet on one technical path. No, they developed two completely different bomb designs at the same time. One was a relatively simple gun-type device that used uranium. The other was a fiendishly complex implosion device for plutonium. You know, just in case one method for building a city killer wasn't quite enough.
So after years of this frantic, secret work, it was finally time for the ultimate demo day, out there in the deserts of New Mexico. All that theory was about to become a terrifying, blindingly bright reality. You can just imagine the tension. It was unbearable. This was the moment of truth. Was the gadget, as they nicknamed it, going to be a total dud, wasting billions of dollars? Or was it going to work, and in doing so, change the very nature of human existence forever?
At 5:29 in the morning on July 16, 1945, they got their answer. A flash of light brighter than any sun anyone had ever seen, followed by a shockwave that rattled the earth for miles. The mushroom cloud climbed 40,000 feet into the sky, and Oppenheimer's initial reaction, spoken to his brother, was just a masterpiece of understatement. I guess it worked.
But as that initial shock and relief started to wear off, something deeper and way more chilling entered his mind. He recalled a line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. In that moment, watching that first atomic fire burn, he understood the truly terrible power he had just unleashed on the world.
The product had officially shipped, and yes, it ended World War II. But it also started the clock on something far, far more dangerous, the atomic age.
And the market moved fast. I mean, within weeks, Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed. Just 4 years later, the main competitor, the Soviet Union, successfully reverse-engineered the product. The arms race was on. Soon, the US government, kind of like a board demanding bigger and better returns, pushed for the hydrogen bomb, a weapon Oppenheimer vehemently opposed. And that opposition ultimately led to him being pushed out. And this is where the story gets just deeply, bitterly ironic. The government desperately needed Oppenheimer's unique, singular genius to create the ultimate weapon. But the second they had it, that same man's moral warnings about an unchecked arms race, well, that made him a political liability. The visionary founder was effectively pushed out of his own company.
This one anecdote just shows the chilling disconnect. When Oppenheimer finally met with President Truman, he was haunted by guilt. He confessed that he felt he had blood on his hands. Truman, ever the pragmatist, had no time for it. He dismissed him as a crybaby scientist and basically showed him the door. You see the creator wrestling with his creation while the user simply sees a tool.
So, what's the ultimate takeaway from this doomsday startup? The Manhattan Project wasn't just a weapon. It wasn't just some scientific breakthrough. It was the exact moment our species figured out how to turn the fundamental laws of physics into the power to destroy ourselves. It was the moment humanity found the universe's delete button, and we've been standing with our finger hovering over it ever since.